western Montana. We've got a storm system that's already rolling in. We had the thunderstorms across northwest and west central portions of the state yesterday. Today we've seen more coverage in the activity, but it's been not quite as impactful or as strong as what we saw yesterday, especially towards places like Ronan and Polson, who got hit by some pretty hefty storms last night. Lots of lightning, thunder, and even some small hail with the gusty winds with those storms. But we could see a little bit of that tonight, not expecting as much in the way of more thunderstorm activity, but a few spotty storms are out there this evening. But otherwise, we're generally looking at cloudy skies as we take these live looks across the area. So give me just about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and I will have everything rolling here momentarily. I think everything's running smoothly, but again, this gives me the chance to make sure it is running like I plan on back here behind the scenes. But overall, I hope you're having a great evening and a great end to your work week. Overall, I think it should be, it's going to be an active weekend of rain and snow and cooler temperatures, closer to average for this time of the year. But overall, I think it should be a pretty decent weekend all around, especially for areas west of the divide. So it does look like we're running well there. If you have any questions or comments about what we can expect this weekend here across the region with this storm rolling in, feel free to ask those in the chat section. I'll try and keep an eye on that as we go. And as you're tuning in, let us know where you are tuning in from this evening. So starting off, going back out to those live looks across the area, cloudy skies have been common. We've seen spotty showers here and there. We're looking at the Butte camera. One of those showers just rolling past the camera a short time ago. This will continue to move in, maybe another round back off to the kind of the south and west. Right now, we're looking at those temperatures a fair bit cooler than what they were this time yesterday. We're in the 40s and low 50s. 47 Kalispell, 46 in Butte, 45 Missoula, and 52 over towards Bozeman. Winds right now less than 10 miles per hour, but earlier this afternoon we saw some gusts closer to that 25 to 35 mile per hour range towards Missoula and Bozeman. But we'll likely see those winds continue to stay on the low side outside of the showers and spotty thunderstorms this evening. Now, the driver for this, we've been talking about the low pressure system. It's pretty much stalled out and it's starting to shrink in size and getting essentially absorbed by this larger trough of low pressure. But you notice how it's starting to deepen right on the coast here. This next wave, this next disturbance is going to be what slides into western Montana and brings us more of that active weather, especially into tomorrow evening. We're going to get what's known as a Yellowstone low. That is pretty typical for this time of the year, but it tracks right across the southern parts of western Montana and right over Yellowstone, usually bringing heavier snow to the mountains of southwest Montana. So we're going to see a relatively typical pattern heading on into tomorrow. But looking at radar for the short term over the last 3 hours, we see that roughly southwest to northeast motion with our shower activity today. Snow levels right now still sitting around 6,000 to 5,500 feet in most areas and above where we're seeing the snow. Those will begin to fall as we go throughout the night. And as you've noticed, there were more thunderstorms over here towards, I believe this is the Columbus area. I know Big Timber's right here. I'm blanking all of a sudden. Let me zoom in. Is it Columbus or... No, that is Big Timber. Okay, Livingston's here. My bad. Livingston, Big Timber. We had some thunderstorms out that direction, as well as a few spotty lightning strikes and some of this activity back across eastern Idaho, and that moved into the Missoula area. Now, we did have one little quick thunderstorm that tried to develop right there. It's since weakened, but looking back off to the north, closer to where we were looking at that thunderstorm yesterday evening, between Dixon, Charlotte, St. Ignatius, right over the Bison Range, a little bit of heavier precipitation. Maybe we could see a lightning strike out of that here over the next, say, 10 to 20 minutes as it begins to, continues to build up its intensity. But overall, for the most part, we're just going to be looking at scattered showers this evening, maybe a rumble of thunder, couple of quick lightning strikes. But I'm not expecting the type of thunderstorm that we saw through that same area, the Mission Valley and Flathead Lake, as we did last night. But overall, the active weather is really just going to go up from here. Now, looking ahead to this weekend, we've got winter weather advisories and winter storm watches within our region. Starting off with those advisories, you may have just seen that flash. We've taken a couple of little power hits here at the station. throughout the last, say, 30 minutes or so. And I'm wondering if that's mostly just due to the wind, but we haven't fully lost power by any means. So just kind of an interesting thing that you may have caught there. But starting off the winter weather advisories, this more, I'll say, periwinkle, purpley shade, those are all now in effect. These will continue through 6 a.m. on Sunday morning. This includes the Northwest Beaverhead County area, the Gallatin and Madison County Mountains, the Centennial Mountains, as well as areas towards Monida Pass, the Big Belt, Bridger, and Castle Mountains, and then the Elkhorn and Boulder Mountains. And in these areas, we could be talking some heavier accumulations. Let me get these specifics for you on those winter weather advisories because they're all included in one. We're going to be looking at heavy wet snow during this time period of potentially 4 to 9 inches with 15 inches of snow on the higher peaks. So we're talking, over 7 to 8,000 feet in those highest peaks, seeing over a foot of snowfall. In our higher valleys in these zones, really I'm thinking more back over here towards, say, Elk Park, Boulder, up towards Clancy. We could be talking about 1 to 4 inches. Same thing down here towards the Big Hole Valley, Wisdom, Jackson areas, and Polaris. So could be talking about 1 to 4 inches in those zones. As for the winter storm watch, that includes the Butte-Blackfoot region. And again, I don't know if I mentioned, 6 a.m. on Sunday is when those are allowed to expire. As for the winter storm watch for the Butte-Blackfoot region there in that darker blue shade, this one is a little bit more complicated. The ceiling for the amount of snowfall that we could see with it is maybe a little bit higher, but also the floor isn't as necessarily as likely as what we're going to see in the winter weather advisory. So this is one of those we're going to have to keep a close eye on into tomorrow. But this is going to begin late Saturday night, so we're probably talking anywhere from 9 to midnight through Sunday morning, probably in that 6 to 10 a.m. time period. And I'm just going to read through this over here on the other screen. Heavy snow is possible in that region. Chance of moderate impacts is around 80%, and major impacts from snow is at least 50%. So this is going to be talking about places like Interstate 90, Homestake Pass, the Montana Highway 1 corridor, so Georgetown Lake, maybe even up towards Phillipsburg, Drummond areas. We could be talking about some bigger impacts. Continuing on with this, there's a 35% chance that Georgetown Lake, Anaconda, Butte, and Homestake Pass could receive greater than 4 inches of snow during that time period, but there's also a 10% chance that the snowfall could exceed 10 inches in that range. So there's a pretty wide margin. Again, 10% is not a very high chance, but still a 1 in 10 chance that we could see over 10 inches of snow somewhere within that line from Georgetown Lake over to Anaconda, Butte, Homestake Pass. Northern Granite and Powell counties, so I'll flip this back around so I can get a little bit more specific. Really this zone, so places again from about Phillipsburg across to, I'll say Deer Lodge even, but Garrison, Avon, Elliston, this zone is where we're talking about here, have a lower probability of significant snowfall except for McDonald Pass, right about in there, have about a 24 or 25% chance of exceeding 4 inches. So again, just the main takeaway is if you're really south of that line from, say, Phillipsburg back up here towards the Highway 12 corridor, so Avon, Elliston, McDonald Pass, or if you're north of that, looking at lesser impacts the further south you are as you get towards Butte, and then further south from there is where you're going to see at least the higher chance of some travel impacts and accumulating snowfall of maybe 4 inches or greater, and that'll continue into Sunday morning as well. So jumping right into Future Tracker, I'll back this up just to get through this evening. We're going to continue to see scattered showers throughout the night. Snow levels will be falling again, closer to about 5,000 feet as we get into tomorrow morning. We'll see one little low pressure system develop and move into north central Montana, and maybe a little bit more coverage towards places like Great Falls, back over towards Lewistown, Helena, and north of Bozeman. We quiet down briefly overnight, getting into tomorrow morning, especially northwest, west central Montana, southwestern portions of the state, Butte, Dillon, and Ennis, Bozeman. Could be talking about some spotty showers into tomorrow morning, though I think the snow levels are still going to be up to around 5,000 feet, so Bozeman, you may still be rain at this point. Then we get into tomorrow afternoon, still looking at much the same spottier showers, really Interstate 90 and south. Very isolated in northwest Montana, may even see some breaks in the clouds up into the Flathead and Mission Valleys. But then we get into tomorrow evening, say 5 to 7 o'clock, we start seeing that low pressure system, that Yellowstone low that I was mentioning before, begin to take shape. And as it moves to the east, it's going to begin to bring in more of that moisture, and it's going to bring those snow levels down. Here's where things get interesting. So we're looking about 1 to 2 a.m. Sunday morning, and you notice that zone of a little bit lacking of confidence with the winter storm watch. Not a whole lot of snow from areas north of Butte. There is the spotty activity back into Granite County, but it's a lot more sparse over here as compared to earlier models in the day that had this low. Instead of tracking further to the south, maybe more into Idaho, it was a little bit further north, maybe closer to Dillon, and that pinwheeled more of that moisture further north. That is still a possibility. This particular model is not showing that. So that's why there is that big range of potentials, especially again in this zone. So Homestake Pass, Butte, Anaconda, Georgetown Lake, you're going to be right on the edge of both of these. Now, as we go throughout the night, you notice really Interstate 90 is that sharp dividing line. North of it, you don't see as much snow from this low. South of it, you'll see better chances, or at least higher chances, of accumulating snowfall. So we're, again, places really on a line, I feel like, from Dillon over to Sheridan, Virginia City, and Big Sky. Areas in that zone and maybe further south towards West Yellowstone may have a better chance of seeing greater accumulations of snowfall tomorrow. So the Highway 287 corridor, 191, and even Interstate 15, we could be talking about valley travel impacts as well. But don't discount that potential up towards I-90. Even in places like Whitehall, Three Forks, Bozeman, we could see at least some lighter accumulations of a couple inches, and that could lead to travel impacts in its own right. So keep that in mind, but passes will be our main focus for tomorrow. So just pointing those out: Homestake Pass, Cardwell Hill, Bozeman Pass, as well as down here towards Targhee and Reynolds Passes, Monida Pass, Norris Hill. Those are the ones to really keep a close eye on. And then really that whole stretch of 191 as you get into the more narrow canyon, as you get into the mountains heading towards Big Sky, and then further down into the Gravelly Mountains and the West Yellowstone area. But continuing on, we'll see that system begin to move off to the east by Sunday afternoon. Spotty showers back to the west, still relatively quiet. A couple of rain showers can't be ruled out. Maybe some more snow down here towards Lost Trail Pass as that next little wave rolls in for early Monday morning, and then another one getting closer to the morning commute that will bring rain and snow showers to northwest and west central Montana, as compared to the other storm that's a little bit further on to the south. So that's roughly what we're looking at there. And beyond that, we're probably looking at another storm system arriving late Monday and into Tuesday. So the active weather is not done by any means. And I want to jump to our accumulating snowfall totals through Sunday evening. This isn't going to be the end of the snowfall, but at least it gives us kind of a window. So you see that line, Interstate 90. North of that, we're talking maybe 1 to 4 inches for Marias, Rogers, McDonald passes. Back along the state line, looking at very little in the way of snowfall. But then you get Lost Trail, Homestake, Bozeman, Monida Pass, anywhere from maybe 3 to as much as 10 inches of snow in the mountains and over the passes in these zones. So these are the 4 I have my closest attention to. But again, let's add Norris Hill, Reynolds, and Targhee passes down here. Could be looking at the same type of impacts. So be prepared for travel impacts in these areas. Wouldn't surprise me at some point, especially towards Homestake, Bozeman, Cardwell Hill, and Norris Hill, that chains will be required for towing units. Just depends on how heavy that snowfall comes down, and also the essentially just the duration of that. If it happens, or the timing, I guess is the better word for it. If it happens later on in the overnight period, we'll probably still see passes requiring chains at some point, but the impact won't be as high as, say, if it lingers on into Sunday morning. But I think we will still be dealing with those issues regardless. So that's a look at the passes. Interstate 90 and south is going to be that main focus, so be prepared for those travel impacts there. Then we get into our valley snowfall, and this is where things get a little bit more uncertain as to snowfall totals. Again, Interstate 90 and south will be the focus of that. The Helena snowfall is more going to be tonight with this first little low that develops. But you see, we're looking at Butte-Bozeman, about 1 to 2 inches on average. I'm going to just give it a little bit more of a cushion. I'll say valley areas, we're talking a dusting up to 3 inches for most areas. That isn't going to be the case for everybody. There will probably be some areas that maybe see a little bit more than 3 inches. As you can see, as Dylan is indicating, maybe more in that 2 to 6 inch range. But we just have to watch and see how this low pressure develops throughout the overnight tonight and into tomorrow before we really start to narrow down those snowfall totals. But again, places like Dillon, Ennis, the Madison River Valley, Twin Bridges, Sheridan area, Beaverhead Valleys, that's where we could see at least a greater chance of accumulating snowfall. Even down here towards Lima, we could be seeing that as well. West Yellowstone, it's only showing about 1 to 3 inches, and that's roughly what the National Weather Service is going for as well. I think that might be a hair underdone, but still 1 to 3 on average I think is going to be common, but a little bit higher would not surprise me, especially at that slightly higher elevation than most of these other areas. Again, it just really comes down to those snow bands and where they decide to set up with that low pressure system and how it tracks. Then we go into Monday, we could see another little hit of snowfall in some of these areas due to that next little system that works its way in. And really just looking at those precipitation chances, it's going to be a pretty soggy next 4 to 5 days at least. Southwest Montana, we're talking 40 to perhaps as high as 80% likelihoods of rain and snow. Back into northwest, west central Montana, especially this weekend, we're probably more in that 20 to 30% range. But by Monday and Tuesday, we see that next storm system arriving, and that'll bring us better chances of accumulation, especially up in our mountains for snowfall and that mix of rain and snow down in our valleys. And that is pretty much everything that I have for this evening. Well, when it comes to temperatures, really from here on, we're going to be pretty close to average. We're talking upper 40s to lower 50s. So maybe by the middle parts of next week, temperatures a little bit below average compared to where we would be normally, but not too far off. This stays pretty consistent all the way through the first week of April. There are indications as we get to say maybe the 6th or 7th of April, we get a ridge of high pressure that starts to build into the area, quieting down our weather at least for a short period of time. But we still have plenty of time before we get close and comfortable with that particular forecast. But that's just something to kind of keep in the back of our mind. We might see a little bit of a warm up and drier conditions later on into, again, the end of the first week of April. So again, this is going to be kind of a last call if you have any questions or comments about this storm system as I go through sort of the headlines of what we can expect. So feel free to ask those in the chat section. Now for tonight, we're going to be looking at some scattered rain and snow showers, maybe an isolated rumble of thunder throughout the evening. Not expecting too much in the way of impacts, not looking at the thunderstorm activity that we saw towards the Mission Valley last night. But a few spotty thunderstorms can't be ruled out. Showers will dissipate other than a few spotty ones in southwest Montana Saturday morning. That will increase in coverage Saturday evening, but overnight and into Sunday morning, that's when that Yellowstone low develops, moving across southwest Montana. Could be talking about heavy wet snow for valleys and passes, but passes will see the greatest impacts really from Interstate 90 and south. A lot of uncertainty, though, still for the Butte-Blackfoot region. How far north does that heaviest snowfall get? Places like Georgetown Lake, Butte, anywhere from, really, I think the range is anywhere from about 2 to 8 inches on average, but both directions there could be a little bit less, in a few areas a little bit more. Further north in the Butte-Blackfoot region, places like Drummond, Avon, Elliston, maybe looking at less likelihood of, I'll say, appreciable accumulations. Then we get into those areas of winter weather advisories. Mountains, we're talking 4 to 9 inches of snow, and in most cases, mountain peaks upwards to 15 inches, and that includes those pass areas. But even down to the valleys, talking Twin Bridges, Sheridan, Dillon, Ennis, even towards Bozeman, Whitehall, Cardwell, Three Forks. We could see some lighter accumulations, a dusting up to 3 inches, but an isolated total of maybe 3 to 5 inches. I won't rule that out. In long story short, just be prepared for winter driving conditions in southwest Montana. Be prepared for travel impacts, especially over our passes. And on top of that, there could be some breezy winds. I'm not expecting strong winds, but any type of breeze can help to blow that snow around, leading to some reduced visibility. Main window for the heaviest snowfall will be Saturday evening through Sunday morning before things start to briefly quiet, I say briefly, but just quiet down just a little bit into Sunday morning. But then we'll go from there with this next storm system, and then we'll get into the early parts of next week with even more of that. So again, thank you all for tuning in this evening. Tune into our live broadcast at 10 o'clock tonight. I'll have the latest weather updates, or Laurel Staples will have the latest news updates. And then this weekend, you'll have forecaster Brianna Henderson in to keep an eye on those travel impacts, those watches, and see if they get upgraded to warnings or, drop down to advisories. But those will be continuing all the way into Sunday morning. So thank you all for tuning in. One last other thing, if you have any photos or videos of the wet weather, the snowy weather, feel free to share those with us at nbcmontana.com/chime-in. I'll see you all on the next one, likely into the early parts of next week, probably on Monday, about the same time. With NBC Montana, I'm meteorologist Mitchell Grooms.